Welcome to 101, a podcast for young women interested in careers in film and TV.
We'll sit down with industry professionals, ask them your questions, and get the answers you need to know.
101. It's a beginning.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to 101. We are here with
Ashley Hearon-Smith and Keri, Setaro. Did I get it?
Yes, you did it right
First time, and I didn't say hair on head, so that was
you did it perfectly.
guys.
Gold star.
So, this show, listeners, is a little bit different than what we usually do. Usually, as you know, we really dive in deep to specific careers, but this time around, we're going to do things a little bit differently because, as you will all find out, it is not, the same journey for everybody. Most people are what we all call multi hyphenates. And that means that you are good at lots of things, you work in lots of capacities, and sometimes you start in one place and you wind up in a completely different place. Maybe not completely different. Like you don't start as an actor and then you go and be an accountant. Generally.
I mean, maybe things happen.
I've considered it.
I have a bunch of actor lawyers. They decided to be a lawyer afterwards.
I like that. Guys, I was prepping for this and going through all of the amazing things that you have done. And my lists were like just so long and so varied. And I feel like I wouldn't do it justice. So I'd love for you guys to just talk about all of the things that you do, how you started. And, we're going to kind of break it down and talk about like what it's like to be a multi-hyphenate and like, how did that journey go for you guys?
Keri, do you want to start?
I guess so. The long and winding road. Okay. So I'll start with me personally. So I went to school to be an actor. I went to two big acting, fancy pants schools. And then as soon as I graduated, I hate to say it, I just started working. I got really lucky. Hate to say that. It was skill plus luck. I always try to give myself a little credit for that. But I got like the first 3 jobs I ever auditioned for, and they ended up being huge jobs. And I was like, oh my gosh, acting is so easy. That's amazing. And those are still to this day the 3 biggest jobs of my life. So I worked pretty steadily I was a theater trained actor, but I booked TV primarily, but did also do theater. And did that for a really long time, managed to also do commercials and voiceover, which paid the bills while I was waiting for the big theater jobs. And then I just got like a little bit burnt out. I really did. There was too many times they're like giving me a sheet of music and saying, learn this in 24 hours, which means you need to hire an accompanist. Thank you. It's late here on the East Coast. And, doing that in 24 hours and money out of my own pocket for like the 12th callback for a show that they've already seen me a million times. And then you show up and the casting agent is ordering her deli order while you are performing with the accompanist you paid to be there. This is advice I always give. I hate to give advice right off the bat in my intro, but Ashley knows that that's the kind of biatch that I am. I just knew like what I would do and what I wouldn't do. And one of the things is and Ashley can attest to this, I've always had a really good sense of my worth. Even when I probably wasn't worth much, I thought I was. And that was a big help. And I think that's why I survived and was lucrative for so many years. But one of my things is like, I'll wait till you finish your deli order. And I would say that, and I'm sure that pissed some people off. And I'm sure some people were like, I can't believe this chick, but okay. And so I just did that. And then one day I was like, they're not mad at me yet, but maybe I should just take a little break. And then I came back again and they didn't really mind that I took a break. And everybody, that's another big thing they say, don't take a big break. You'll lose momentum. I did okay. I came back. And then I decided I was going to have a baby. And a pandemic happened. And so naturally kind of the industry shut down and my life was shutting down to get ready to have a baby. And that brings us to where we are now, which is, I'll tell our origin story after Ashley tells hers, but we met doing Scary Mommy, which was one podcast. And then we decided to do Mom Trash. So not that I'm not doing those other things. In fact, I have a voiceover that I have to record after this is over, but just not as much. It's more on my own terms as a creator. And I can get into more depth later about all that, but that's like kind of my origin story. But I've done it all in the arts. I was a theater producer, theater artistic director, theater educator, dancer, singer, actor, all the things.
Yeah. I love that you touched on first, like right off the bat, I love that you touched on your worth.
Yeah.
I think it's great. And it's such a credit to you that right off the bat, you were like, nope.
Because I just spent 13 hours where I had to call out of my survival job to learn
Yep.
this piece of music, and $300 later to be here in an audition that I haven't even booked yet. So the least you could do is order your sandwich when I'm not performing. Thanks.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ashley?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I, with the pushing of my parents, did not go to college for acting, despite the fact that that's what I really wanted to do at the time. So I went for communications with a focus in film and television production, and ended up really, really loving production in general. It felt safe. It felt like not something where I was going to be rejected on an ongoing basis. It just felt like I could use a different part of my brain, but still be in the same field. And it was something that I enjoyed, and it was a nice backup. But while I ended up doing it, I was really focused on my production career. I ended up getting into daytime television, live daytime TV, and loved it. Definitely not part of the plan, which is so many things in my life. I ended up getting hired as the talent coordinator for the Martha Stewart show. So essentially, I was dealing with celebrities on a daily basis, and like their butler when they got there. I was the liaison between their people and production. But after about 5 years in it, and taking another job on another show.
Are you not going to mention that fateful show?
Yeah, the Wendy Williams show.
Juicy.
I just, it was not great for me. It was not.
Ashley was a part of the daytime Emmy award-winning crew of Martha Stewart, by the way.
That's true.
Incredible.
I do have a daytime Emmy. Thank you. It was not all my doing. It was barely my doing. It was the team, but I
like to think it was all Ashley.
Yeah, it was all me. But you know, it felt like something was missing, and I wasn't pursuing something that I did really want to do. And so I decided I was going to pursue being in front of the camera professionally, as opposed to just what I did my whole life growing up. And I moved back in with my parents. I quit my job. I got a bartending job, did the whole thing. So I was doing it professionally in New York for a year. And I was like, you know what? I'm really tired of auditioning and not getting things. And I loved this play called Pizza Man. And I decided I'm gonna put this on myself. That way I can play the part, and whatever. If this is how I have to like play the roles that I want to play, so be it. So I rented the little black box theater at Shetler, which is now no longer open.
I know.
Yeah. Isn't that sad? What an end of an era. But I ended up really loving that aspect of production, and kind of combining these things I had already done and my very type A Virgo logistical production brain. And I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to start producing all kinds of things because I can do this. We made money. I could pay people. It went very, very well. So after that, I moved to LA, where my own depression really just got the best of me. I really was not pursuing this despite the fact that that's what I was there for. So
I loved LA. I loved being out in LA.
It was not for me. It was a very strange world for me. No offense. Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's a love hate,
Yeah.
I was gonna say I loved it, but it was also strange and terrible. But I also loved it.
I couldn't find anybody who didn't work in the entertainment industry to have a conversation with. And it was really frustrating to me. I wanted to talk to a barber or something, somebody who did something
Go to the valley, girl.
I know, I should have. I was living in Silver Lake. I was working in Silver Lake. My whole life was there.
I do love Silver Lake though. Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty good. So anyway, my now husband and I ended up moving back here, and I just started producing all kinds of other friends' work,
including a child.
And I ended up getting an acting role in a feature where I was like a bikini chick, and I was like rubbing up on this guy in a hot tub, And I just thought, oh my God, this is not what I dreamt of when I dreamt of being an actress. Like this, no. So I knew time to time to try something else. And what I really loved as a kid was kind of just being involved in Hollywood and this whole like hosting position of it all. So I ended up creating an Instagram docuseries and did that for about a year and a half until I was found for Scary Mommy. And, you know, it just, because of my start in production, I just took any production job. I mean, I've taken every PA, freelancing PA job, costume for a short film, like you name it, and I've done it. And I think it's important to kind of understand what every position kind of goes through.
You know, I love making art, and there's usually some ways that I feel more a seamless transfer when making art. Acting happens to be one of those ways. There's some other artistic ways that I also can do that, but acting was the one that was like the most natural to me, let's say. I just realized after doing it that doing the show was only like a litmus test to see if what the tinkering I was doing in rehearsal worked. Like I just really liked rehearsing and I liked performing just
Practicing
to,
your craft.
yeah. And so I think as an artist of any kind of discipline, you have to really, for longevity and for mental health longevity, you have to figure what is the part of it that you like? And is that part available in other ways? Because it's hard to work as an artist for your whole entire life. And you need to be flexible as long as it's feeding that same part of you that needs to be fed.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of your journeys really just show how important it is to be nimble. And it's not something, you know, that they talk about in acting school at all. I studied acting for 3 years and came out of a conservatory, and they're like, okay, now audition and do this. And, you know, nobody talks about how frustrated you get when you're not being considered for things, or you're, you know, you feel like you're being considered for the same things. And, you know, it's like you're not a victim of your situation. You can actually pivot and move in a different direction.
And not only that, you can create your own opportunities. You know, when you're talking about multi hyphenates, yes, we have a mom show, but that's like kind of the ultimate multi hyphenate, right? And I hate to be like, oh, being a mom is like that, because it's not there. And honestly, like, I'm going to tell you right now, anyone who chooses not to have kids, more power to you. But it is the ultimate multi hyphenate. Like you have to know how to roll with the punches, juggle 6,000 things you've never even considered. Have you had to do an interview and wipe your kid's ass after they take a shit? Because I have a million times.
Yep.
Ask Keri.
But I mean, it's true. And I think that, you know, just touching on the mom component, because I also have 2 children, it's something that for years, like women have had to kind of hide. And I don't want to say that we still do, but there are certain situations where I've felt uncomfortable saying, oh yeah, my kids, blah, 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 because I knew that they would think I'm not completely serious about the role, or I'm
You
not,
need
you
more
know,
time.
I'm not dedicated. And which is bullshit, like
Absolutely.
100%. I think that it's important to talk about it and just highlight how unbelievable moms are, especially working moms in the creative field. I guess I would love to know more about when you guys knew that you wanted to be in the industry. Was it something that you grew up knowing, or?
My whole life. Ever since I was a little girl, all I wanted to do was be in entertainment in some capacity, whether it was watching Entertainment Tonight religiously with my dad, or dancing in front of MTV, or I mean, literally, I had a moment where I tinkered with potentially being a marine biologist, and then I realized I'm scared of sharks. So it was like, it was that truly, it was always
Astronomy for me. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a little bit of one. Yeah. There was never a moment that I didn't think I wanted to be involved in this industry in some capacity. Keri?
I'm an only child of divorced parents. I got divorced. I was like makeup sex. My mom moved back in with her parents because she was a ER night nurse. And I grew up with my grandmother had 7 kids. My mom's one of the oldest, and the youngest and I were kind of raised like brother and sister. It was a very tight house, so to speak. It was not, I was like, we were sleeping head to toe kind of thing. There was lots of people in that house. And so my mom would put me in lessons. I had 1 million lessons, and I was a very artistic kid. So I had dance lessons and flute lessons. I took dance lessons like 3 to 4 days a week, and flute lessons and ice skating lessons. And so I just did all this stuff. And I think it was my mom's way of like keeping me out of the house until I was exhausted. But I really loved the arts. Ashley is finally coming to realize what I've said for a long time is I'm secretly a shy kid. I'm like an introvert, extrovert kind of thing. And I really love doing the artistic part of it, but the performance part I didn't like so much. So, but I was good at things. And so people kept coming to my mom and say, you should get her into this. So then I did like 2 pageants and I didn't like it. I did kids commercials. I told my mom I didn't want to do them anymore. I just wanted to do the thing for fun. So that's a theme in my life. I just want to do the thing for fun. And when I went to high school, I was like, oh, there's something called a musical you can audition for. That seems like easier dance than I'm used to. And so I auditioned and I got the lead, and I just really enjoyed it. And people would come up to my mom afterwards and be like, she's really good. You should think about this. And Mom's like, no, she wants to be a doctor, which I did. And so I just told myself, hey, I enjoy doing this thing. People say I'm good. I'll audition. I didn't even do any research on acting schools. I did research on schools that I wanted to go for pre-med. And I auditioned for one art school, and out of all the other schools I, applied to, and I got in. I thought it was a joke. And my mom was like, you got to go and try. And so I did. And then once I did it, I just kind of never looked back. It was really therapeutic for me, and I really did enjoy it. Definitely like a soul saver for me. I've had so many family members in my family do something that doesn't make them happy, and I've seen what that is. And so let me keep assessing along the way. Is this working? Is this working? And at one point it wasn't. So I was like, okay, I'll take a little break.
Yeah.
My mental health and my personal being is way more important to me than any kind of, achievement.
Yeah. Got to be honest with yourself.
Because let's face it, this business is not easy. It's not like, oh my God, I was up for that promotion and I got it because I worked so hard for decades. It's like
the time you put in does not equal what you get out of it.
It's not a meritocracy.
Or the money.
Yeah.
It's not. And, I think mental wellness is something that, people are starting to talk about in the industry.
I'll be very honest in that, like, there have definitely been times in my career, even now, where I'll look back and be like, well, maybe I shouldn't have pivoted. Maybe I should have just sucked it up.
Yeah, you always have those thoughts. Like, what would have been?
I could probably be a pretty big time talent booker had I stuck with it and be on a great show and making a shit ton more money than I ever thought possible for myself. But at the end of the day, I think people go into this, kind of going back to what everybody here has said, we get into this because there's some kind of creativity, there's some kind of art that we need to fulfill within ourselves. And whatever it was that I left, and I say whatever it was because there's been multiple things, it wasn't fulfilling in that way. So I guess there's no regrets, but the paycheck sounds really good. Really good.
So what would you say, like, what are your big takeaways from being a multi-hyphenate?
I mean, I'm not comfortable usually in my everyday life. You know what I mean? Like I've never stuck with something to stay comfortable. And I think that's a strength. It takes courage to leave something. It takes courage to venture out and do your own thing. That's ballsy. That takes moxie, and I love that word for it because it does. It's such a, like, especially as a woman, I think it takes a lot of chutzpah, to just go ahead and really do something like that. I mean, I'll tell you, I'm a pretty big resolution person, and I always like try and set goals for myself. And one of the things I've really learned on this journey I'm on, that sounded so hippy dippy, is I have no idea where I'm going. I don't know what my end game is anymore. But I can tell you, like, one of the things that I really want for my career is to continue being a host, getting shows in development. That's something I'm very passionate about, mostly unscripted.
Take all different kinds of jobs in and around the career that you want, especially when the time is kind of low leverage. So when I was in college, I did a lot of internships, and I call that like low leverage because it wasn't like this was my whole job that I was doing all the time. But I would work at a casting agent. I'd work at a artistic agent. By working behind the scenes, I learned what makes a headshot pop to a casting agent. What's a good tape look like? What's a good audition look like? And then, or like little tips, like if you're auditioning for a soap opera, have your nails painted. They look at that stuff because they're going to have you on a contract for a long time.
You guys don't know this about Keri, but she is like nail quality is an obsessive.
Just all these little tips, right? Like, how many times does it take your headshot to go across a person's desk before they even really remember put your name attached or whatever? Just do all that because that helps you. And then when it is high leverage, like after graduation, when you're living in the world, you already have that information. And then for me, the thing that I like my next phase of my life is I do think it's kind of a unique quality that I have, where I've always been able to keep a kind of like mindful quality to this career. It's both been a little bit natural, and a lot of it I've had to work very hard to find. And so this next kind of phase of my life is weirdly like teaching big old life lessons using the tools of the arts. So like
sidebar. One of the things Keri has not said throughout this entire interview, and I don't know how, is that she also has devoted much of her career to teaching yoga and meditation and all of that. And I know you didn't say it, so I wanted the listeners to know. So it wasn't just like, and she likes hokey stuff, Yeah.
No, I've devoted like 30 years to meditating and yoga. And I find more juice now in using the arts to help teach people life skills instead of the opposite. Mental fortitude is so important to me, and to just be able to teach people that in a career that it's sometimes very hard to have that. It's just interesting to me.
One more lesson that I wanted to bring up is say yes to every opportunity and then learn when to say no. I think it's very easy to say yes to every opportunity, especially in this industry, because so many gigs are 1 or 2 days. It's such a short-term commitment. It's not a big deal. Your friend asked you to be the lighting person on their short film. Just say yes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, be open to a new opportunity and a new experience. Be open. This is going to be very unpopular. I'm warning everybody right now.
I'll probably tell you afterwards.
This is something my husband and I, who is also in the industry, talk about excessively, and that is you have to be willing to work for free sometimes.
Okay, nope, me and my husband disagree. My husband's also in the industry.
That's fine. You have to be willing to work for free sometimes. I'm not saying at an upper level of things, but at a lower level, you have to be willing to work for free. You can say no. Wait, you can say no. You can argue me, and that's fine, but you are going to cut yourself off from certain opportunities. We are not in an industry. We are not dentists. We are not lawyers. We are not people who get paid for every single thing. It shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. Secondly, knowing she'll interrupt me, so I'm cutting her off.
I'm being really good.
You are, but I'm also like, also know when to say no to an opportunity, because that is just as important. Know when to ask for money for an opportunity. Know when to ask for more money for an opportunity. That's not stuff you're going to learn early on. It's going to take years of being in this industry, but I do think that all of those things are very important.
I would like to redefine free, if I may.
Sure. You should listen, credit counts as pay. You want to make credit?
Well, here's the thing.
Because I think that's fair.
This is how I feel. I feel like I'm a full believer in shine theory. I will get the job that I'm right for, and that I will help other people who I also believe in, raise them up, and that kind of continuum feeds into each other and creates more opportunities for everyone. That's the first thing. Second thing is, free, I think, means you're not getting anything from it. So I've definitely worked for a monthly subway card. Sometimes it's that you get to work with a major, your hero or your major person and you get a credit. Okay. I don't think things should be free. I think you should get paid $100 or a stipend or whatever.
Yeah,
because
learn to
Fine.
leverage your goods. Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, because
That's fair, but you get what I'm saying. I mean, like,
well,
you're
I'm
not
just
going to
saying-
get a salary for every job. Sometimes you just have to take that you can put something on your IMDb and say that you had this job and that you have experience. And sometimes that's all you're going to get. And that might be worth it. And again, it's knowing where you are in your career to say yes or no to that opportunity.
But something that I want to like emphasize that Ashley and I try to remind each other on the daily is that you're not just being paid for that job. You're being paid for all the work that you've put in all these years that makes you the most qualified for that job. Your rate that you're charging should, in some ways, encapsulate the experience that you have, not just that one job.
I'm of the mindset where it depends on the project. It depends, are the producers getting paid? If the producers are getting paid and they're expecting other people to not get paid, then, it changes
Totally.
the equation.
But
I think that we all started around the time where, I worked for free for like ever.
Yes. I mean, remember like 10 years ago when the way to get yourself noticed as an actor was to have a web series.
Mhm.
Now it's like, in my opinion, making a web series of your own is kind of a moot point. Why even bother? There's TikTok. You can make something interesting for close to no money whatsoever. You don't even need good lighting. You barely need a camera of any kind. You just use your phone and a ring light.
Yeah.
And that can propel you into huge stardom and huge success and really a stepping stone for your career. It's kind of like fascinating.
It's an exciting time to make your mark because it sort of feels like anything is possible in a way. Well,
Yeah.
Conversely, it's extremely sad that on every single breakdown of a large motion picture, it asks you how many followers
Yes,
you have.
I know.
So that you could be the most amazing actor the world has ever known and, worked with Dame Judi Dench for 27 years. And if you don't have 30K followers, you can't even get an audition. That's very sad too.
That kind of brings me to my next question.
Wah, wah, wah.
I actually have a question about Dame Judi. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, with that, like, what do you think needs to change in the industry? Like, there is so much. Obviously, I mean, I know I have a list that's like super long, but like, what do you think are the most pressing things that have to change?
Well, it would be great if the casting couch situation wasn't still a thing. I mean, that article just came out in either Variety or Hollywood Reporter that actually nothing has really changed after Me Too. The only people that are really hiring, according to this article, women and people of color are female directors, and they're still not being hired at the rate that
Yeah.
Well,
they
there's
should
also
be.
just not as many of them.
Well, I mean, just look at the Golden Globe nominations. Like,
Yeah.
clearly, I mean, there were no women who could possibly ever direct a film as well as a man would. So why, they weren't nominated.
I think that in some ways, Me Too has made things a little worse. I'm not negating, this is not me saying that it shouldn't have happened and that it wasn't valid, but in some ways it's actually, we uncovered how
Mhm.
bad it is.
Mhm.
And now we're like being made to feel bad that we uncovered how bad it is, both by women and men.
Mhm. Yeah.
Being like, and now you've made it difficult for us,
Yeah.
both men and women.
We've
depending
come
on where
across
you
women
land.
that don't think that there's any issue. Like, there are women who have come through the system
Yeah.
before us and, have navigated this impossible.
And made it work for them in some
They
cases.
don't
That's
think,
why.
well, I did it and I put up with all this BS.
Yeah.
I
And I
can't-
just feel like nobody's talking about how it's kind of made it worse in some cases. It's almost
Yeah.
like to call it out and then not have really anything done about
Yeah.
it, except then now the light is shown on you that you called it out.
Yeah, there are a lot more stories being told about women, so that's what the viewers see. So they're like, oh, well, there are more female centric stories, blah
Right.
blah blah. It's
She
like, well, no,
Said
no,
is
no,
on
no.
Peacock.
Yeah, it's like, no.
I would just like people to get work for their talent. That's all. Like, and talent doesn't necessarily mean that they like can read all the Shakespeare sonnets. It could be just that certain je ne sais quoi that they light up the room,
Sure.
and their
Yeah.
acting's only medium. But you know what isn't talent for me? Like Addison Rae, like that kind of thing. That's like did a couple TikTok dances, career.
Yeah, I
Like,
have a big problem with that.
I'm not saying they're not talented. They're very good at what they're doing. They're very good at this influencing thing, but seeing it as a crossover and seeing casting where it says that you need to have this many followers. Every amazing actor I know that's working on their craft doesn't have time to try to get followers.
It's
And
coming from the
all-
top down.
Right. And all the actors that I know that are amazing actors who want to get those auditions are paying for followers so that
Yeah.
they can get those auditions.
So sad.
Where is the market for just like a good old fashioned feel good buddy comedy? And that can be a female buddy comedy,
They're
a
just-
rom-com,
They're
anything.
not
It's
there.
life is hard. We're living in weird times. I don't always want to see something that's just going to bring me down and make me
That's
feel
why
all
I
kinds
have
of
the
things.
TV show The Ghost Whisperer. That is my guilty pleasure. There's no plot. There's
me
ghosts.
with all reality.
Jennifer Love Hewitt with a beautiful smoky eye. It's what I need to just relax.
Oh, you
Decent.
know what? Never Have I Ever.
Oh,
Okay.
that's also a Mindy Kaling show, right?
Mindy Kaling,
Yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah, I did watch
cute,
that. That was
too.
cute.
Oh my
That was
gosh,
great.
The
like-
film is not, and television is not just about the artistry, although that is something that can make me fall in love with it. It's about the fantasy and it's about the escapism. And so I love a movie that just transports me and just that is the magic. I mean, I don't want to go on Nicole Kidman and this is what we're here for, but it's like that's what we do. And that's the beauty of it. That's why for me, one of the things I would want to change is I want more of that. I want more escapism, more fun, silly things that I can get caught up in that make me feel good.
I have an amazing Meryl Streep story that I believe is the only time I could tell the story would be on this podcast. May I tell it?
Of course. You can't put that out there and then not
Please.
tell it. Be like, sorry,
No,
no,
we
Keri,
don't want to hear
sorry,
your Meryl
get
Streep
out of
story.
time.
Okay, so my boyfriend at the time was the set designer for the plays in the park in Central Park.
Mhm.
And it was one year where they did an Ibsen with like every star on the planet. It was like Christopher Walken, Kevin Kline, Natalie Portman.
I love Kevin Kline.
I know, he's so good. And Meryl Streep and what's his name? Philip Seymour Hoffman. Now this is Philip Seymour Hoffman before he was mega famous. This is like after Boogie Nights, everybody knows my name, Philip Seymour. He's still pretty young. And now, sadly, we know he had terrible addiction and is passed. So I don't know what state he was in this because the story does involve him. So my boyfriend at the time, they said that I could come in and watch rehearsal. And I guess Philip had complained a couple days before over and over again to the stage managers that there wasn't any good coffee. And this was before New York had Starbucks in every corner. They were not as prevalent. And they had complained that all the coffee, because any of you that ever worked in theater, it's drip coffee that's in there forever. It's disgusting. So anyway, he kept complaining that the coffee was gross and that it was cold. And why couldn't somebody get him a good cup of coffee? Now, he is like the least of the celebrities on this. So the day that I get there, I had heard from my boyfriend that he'd been making a stink a little bit and people were starting to get pissed off. So the day that I get there, Meryl Streep walks in with a Dunkin' Donuts box of Joe and slams it down on the table in front of Philip Seymour Hoffman and says in the most polite Meryl way possible, "Philip, darling, if you want hot coffee, you have to go get it yourself. Here, this is for you." And she was trying to make a point that everybody here is equal. None of us have LA Hollywood assistants. This is plays in the park. If you want a hot cup of coffee, get it yourself. He was so used to working in film and having people like get him stuff that he didn't realize that, one, don't be rude to the stage managers. It's not their fault. And two, don't be a diva. This is theater. and it was so classy. And it was so, I was like, oh, mic drop to Meryl. She just brings him a solo box of Joe and was like, shut the F up. But she said it nicely and taught him like a nice little lesson. I was like, that is classy. And that sums up being in the business, folks.
Oh my God.
You want
that
a hot
is like
cup of
the
coffee?
greatest
Get it
story.
yourself.
100%. Can I just admit that I'm like trying to picture Meryl Streep in Dunkin' Donuts?
I know. Can you imagine?
But you know what? He took it graciously and he got the point.
Yeah.
And it was
Sometimes
just like,
you just got to be told some things for you to get it. And then you
I
get
was
it.
like, I got this for you. Don't worry about it, stage
I'm
managers.
happy to hear he got it.
Yeah, he
In
did
all
get it.
honesty, after that.
Yeah. So anyway, I just feel like that is like a great reminder for anyone in the business. If you want your own hot coffee, get it yourself.
Yeah. Which extends to like everything else.
Yeah.
It's like, don't be an asshole. I
Don't
mean,
be an asshole.
that is just so easy. It's so easy to not be an asshole.
Yeah.
This is a collaborative art. There's no need to have an ego. We're all working towards a goal, common goal, hopefully.
Yeah. Stick up for what you believe in and your
Sure.
rights, but don't be a dick if you don't have to be. Yep.
Truthfully.
This was so awesome.
Thank you for having us. This
Also,
is great.
like, I just want to say, I've been like listening to all your guys' episodes, and what you're doing is so important because these conversations are not really had like at all, let alone with women.
Yep.
But men aren't really young people aren't really handing this over to men either. But I think women are the only people that are willing to not gatekeep. I'm really, grateful that you guys are providing a resource,
Thank you. It's something that is really important to us.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Consider us friends.
You can find us on Instagram at 101podcast, 101podcast.com. And we also have, we also have
you're
a
the
YouTube channel.
editor.
You can listen to us on YouTube, watch us on YouTube at Exit 74 Productions. So thank you guys
Thanks
so much
for listening.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.